Last Clue is a production of Smith Media Team, LLC. If you have any information about any of the cases discussed today, please email us at info@smithmediateamllc.com. Listener discretion is advised, as some content may be disturbing to listeners.
So we're here today to do our wrap-up show on 2025, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a situation in the San Antonio area. In the final days of this month, December 2025, in South Texas, there have been 2 young women that have vanished from their neighborhoods under some troubling circumstances. Their disappearances have obviously galvanized families, law enforcement, and entire communities, and they're demanding answers. The first is Camila Mendoza Olmos. In the early morning hours of Christmas Eve, 19-year-old Camila walked out of her home in a northwest suburban corridor just after 6:58 in the morning. This was a normal time for her walks. There's been some speculation about surveillance footage. We've seen some things. I feel like some of it needs to be solidified a little bit more.
Yeah, because you can look at those pictures, and I've seen some of the pictures adjusted with AI to kind of brighten them and alter them and make them more visible, things like that. But there's a lot of armchair sleuths looking at these pictures going, that's not her, that's a man, is all in black. We all have our opinions, but what we need right now are facts. Although we don't like to leave any option unturned, we are going to go with what we have on the case right this minute.
But we're also very careful, especially with the Jesse McButler situation, where we've seen a lot of people that are have put together reels that have disturbing footage and images of women, especially being taken, being brutalized, pulled by ponytails. Some of those are from actual films from Hollywood.
Yes.
Some of them are doorbell cameras from
different cases,
almost completely. A decade ago.
So yeah, we don't want to sensationalize anything. These things that are going on are heinous enough as they are. They don't need to be embellished.
What we do know from law enforcement officials is that Camila did leave behind her phone and her vehicle. She has allegedly only taken her keys and possibly her driver's license. There's also been some speculation on what she was wearing. The latest report said she was wearing some sort of baby blue and black hoodie and baby blue pajama bottoms and white shoes, although since this has been since Christmas Eve, that obviously could have changed depending on where Camila has gone.
Correct. And as of the most recent update that we had this afternoon from Bexar County Sheriff's Department, those pajama bottoms were short. So like girls, you know what we're talking about when we say short pajama bottoms. So they're that kind of material and blue.
And that is Bexar County, even though it is not spelled like Bexar County. If you hear anyone pronounce it any differently, they have no clue what they're talking about.
It is not Bexar, anything of the sort. It's Bexar. Maybe one day I'll give you a history lesson on why that is. Anyway.
So authorities have said that they believe she's in imminent danger. They have not ruled out foul play. Unfortunately, we have to say this, but possibly trafficking or a mental health related distress. There was reportedly a mutual breakup between her and her now ex-boyfriend. Again, it's being purported as mutual. I'm standing in the middle on this because we don't know. That's what law enforcement officials are currently telling us.
And now we do know that her ex-boyfriend has been assisting in the search for her. However, I personally have not heard whether this ex-boyfriend is the same ex-boyfriend of this purported mutual breakup. So
the search efforts are ongoing. There are hundreds of volunteers. There are drones, cadaver dogs, and multiple agencies now involved in this. And there is a reward for information being offered leading to her safe return.
Yes. So it's just kind of odd that she would leave behind her phone, which is basically her lifeline, and it was off.
And every second counts here,
Yes,
folks. I mean, if you know anything, if you've heard anything, and reputable, please do not call the sheriff's office saying, I heard from this guy who knows this kid who saw Ferris pass out at 31 Flavors last night. That we don't need that at this point. You have a young lady who was going through a lot, and she went out for her walk, and now she's been missing since Christmas Eve. Just please keep your facts
we are now
involved.
getting reports that Bexar County has recovered dash cam footage of her leaving the area. So we'll update you more on that as we go along in this podcast. Real time, guys.
The second missing person is a 17-year-old, Angelique Johnson. She was reported missing days later after being seen in a residential corridor in the northwest side of this same region.
Yes.
She's approximately 5'10", with brown hair and brown eyes. Unlike Camila, Angelique is believed to still have her cell phone with her, so that can potentially be good news, as we've seen in other cases in the past. Unfortunately, we don't have as much information on Angelique as we do on Camila. The details have been kept rather tight-lipped. It doesn't change the fact that we have a 17-year-old young lady named Angelique Johnson that is missing.
From the same area.
Deputies continue to ask the public for tips that may help establish her last movements or her current location.
Ring cams, doorbell cams, motion sensor lights, anything odd, any traffic in your area, please take a second look.
So we have two disappearances, the same region in the same week. They're different circumstances, but we all have the same unanswered question at this point. Where did they go? Mm-hmm. Now, I want to add just a little bit to this story. This has been widely talked about in this area, but just about 3 hours away, depending on how fast you drive, along these winding waterways that cut through dense neighborhoods, there's another disturbing pattern that has emerged and has been talked about for quite some time.
It has.
Folks, this is in Houston.
Houston. They should call it Hugeston. That's man, San Antonio's big, and trust me, I know that for a fact. Traveled a couple of times to Houston, and
I spent a week in Houston one day.
Yes, that's pretty accurate.
In 2025 alone, in Houston, at least 34 bodies have been recovered from bayous in the greater Houston region. In one single week, 3 bodies were found, which has only intensified the public concern in that area, and it has garnered a lot of online speculation.
Indeed it has. And social media users have questioned whether a serial offender may be operating in their midst.
With that many bodies, it makes me think more mob than it does a serial offender. But be that as it may, there is definitely
something going on.
Well, we think there's something going on, but the law enforcement officials in the area and prosecutors have both publicly denied any evidence supporting a serial killer theory.
Okay, well, then how about you go find out what's happening to these people and you identify causes of death and you release those to the public? How about that?
They are pointing instead toward homelessness, substance use, mental health crises, and accidental drownings for 34 people being recovered in 2025 alone. That's what authorities are pointing to.
Now, while we back the blue, and we really do, we support law enforcement, we also don't just go blindly into anything. We kind of look at everything from every angle, and we know from experience that sometimes those that are supposed to serve and protect don't necessarily do that. So unanswered questions here.
And Houston has a vast network of bayous that spans
absolutely
thousands of miles. And a lot of them run directly through populated areas. Now, we've given you a lot of numbers. We know numbers don't tell the whole story, but I think in this case they do demand some attention, especially when families elsewhere are still searching for loved ones, family members, and friends. And now, what we came here for.
We don't have a drum.
Not yet. We're getting there. Do you know how expensive drummers are? Ask Gaston from Kingdom Collapse, one of our favorite bands. Hey guys, we love you. Get back on the road. Mm-hmm. So we are going to count down our top 10 most listened to episodes of 2025.
I can't believe this year is coming to a close and we've been doing this for a year.
It's definitely surprising, and we would not be here without the support of our listeners and our subscribers, every single one of you who have taken more than 30 seconds to listen to a podcast, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, whether you agree, disagree. We would not still be doing this without each and every one of you. We wouldn't even have a top 10 list. We'd probably have a top 1 list, but we actually have a top 10 list with 2 honorable mentions. So,
this is so exciting.
I am really excited about that. But again, I
know it sounds sad to say it's true crime. It's about death and things like that. So it feels a little weird to say I'm excited, but I think it's more grateful that the word and memories and the people's names are getting back out there with the help of our listeners.
As she just exclaimed woo-hoo into the microphone, she's now...
I can't contain it. Can't.
But again, we can't thank you enough. We appreciate the support. We know a lot of the people who have been with us from the start that we're a small podcast, and so we get to know some of our habitual listeners, and we sincerely, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you, because the last clue could have packed it up after the first couple of episodes. But if it wasn't for the listeners and subscribers, if it wasn't for the families reaching out to us to ask for assistance or ask for us to look into cases, we might not even be here at this very moment. So again,
thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
And now, for the moment you haven't been waiting for, this is our top 10 most listened to episodes of 2025. And we start with our first honorable mention. And I have to say that I hope, and I'm going to mention this name again. I've mentioned it in prior podcasts. I certainly hope that at some point Othram gets involved in this case.
Yes.
Because if there is any chance of this case coming to a resolution, I believe Othram's name will be involved.
Absolutely.
And we are not in any way sponsored by Othram.
We are not.
We seek justice in these cases. So Our first honorable mention is an episode that we did earlier this year. This episode was from May 27th, and it is titled 4 Decades Later, Who Killed Melissa Ann Moore?
I can't believe this one's been going on for 40 years. She was murdered more than 40 years ago, and no one has ever been publicly charged. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation has acknowledged awareness of the case, while local law enforcement remains pretty largely silent.
And it's surprising because this is in Tulsa.
Yes.
And we literally just walked out of our home to the podcast studio, and what was on our TV in the game room? Live PD.
Where were they?
They were in Tulsa.
Yeah, they were.
And who was behind the booth commentating on the crime that was going down in Tulsa? None other than Stax. And if you are a true crime fan or a police fan, you know exactly who Stax is. He's on just about every live PD episode.
Stax Sticks. I don't know. I always get his name backwards.
Is it Stax or Sticks?
Like I said, I always get his name backwards. So I think Sticks. So you're probably right. Anyway, it's not like that's what I would call him if we rolled up on him, because it would probably not be a good thing we were rolling up on him.
It probably is Sticks, and I just say Stacks because of my accent.
That's also very true. And this is, I think, where you were talking about, we've been talking about advances in DNA technology forever, and they've reopened similar cold cases nationwide. So why not here?
Well, and there's speculation in this case, and we talked about it in this podcast, that investigators might possess suspect knowledge that never met the prosecution thresholds.
Mm-hmm. We did.
And, this, without getting a DNA expert involved in this case, this exemplifies how time can shield perpetrators when agencies choose inaction.
Kind of sit on their hands. And I believe Melissa's parents passed away in 2005 and 2006, according to Oklahoma cold cases, leaving only her brother alive.
First of all, I'd like to say I love Oklahoma cold cases.
I do too.
That's a fantastic site. We've said it before in a previous podcast. I'm going to say it again. If Dateline would ever take a strong look at Oklahoma and putting an office here somewhere, probably Oklahoma City, they would not run out of material for a long time.
They would not, but anyone with information about Melissa Ann Moore's death is urged to contact the Tulsa Police Department at 918-596-9222.
On to our second honorable mention. It's one of our more recent podcasts.
Yes.
This guy is not to be found. The story of Trevor Deely.
That was definitely one of the more recent ones, and one of our international ones.
This was our episode from December 7th of this year. Trevor Deely disappeared after leaving a work function during a torrential rainstorm. He was captured briefly on the CCTV. Despite extensive searches, no confirmed sightings or remains have ever been found.
This one is so crazy. It's like he just disappeared into thin air.
This is as close in a cold case, missing persons case as you get to an alien abduction. They have not found anything.
Nothing.
From this guy.
Not a shred, not a hair, nothing.
There were multiple unidentified individuals who were seen near his last location. A lot of the locals who have followed this case from the beginning believe that there was foul play, and it occurred shortly after he left camera range. This case remains one of Ireland's most haunting disappearances.
Yes. It's just unbelievable. Now, into our top 10.
At number 10, this is also one of our more recent podcasts.
I believe this one was like around Thanksgiving time.
This was November 23rd of this year. This was a breaking podcast that we launched as soon as we heard. This was titled Slender Man Defendant Morgan Geyser Escapes Monitoring.
Ugh.
This was part of the infamous Slender Man murders, where two young ladies lured another young girl into the forest to stab her to death, to protect their families from the
fictional dude.
Fictional dude, Slender Man. Morgan Geyser removed her GPS monitoring bracelet while she was under supervised release,
which she never should have been under.
Authorities confirmed she was briefly, depending on your term of briefly, unaccounted for before being located. And this incident sparked a lot of outrage and a lot of concerns about supervision standards. And the experts suggest that systematic gaps rather than an isolated error contributed to her escaping.
Yeah, and I think they're still trying to determine whether they're going to, now that she's been captured again, they're still trying to determine whether or not they want to put her back under the supervised, like, home that she was in or jail time. And if it's jail time, how long? I don't understand why this has to be a discussion.
I think I would put 2 ankle monitors and, if there is such a thing, a neck monitor around this person.
I'd send her right to prison. Do not pass go.
Number 9. This is one of our older episodes.
I believe this was one of our earlier ones in the season, pretty early on in the year.
This was actually our second ever podcast from The Last Clue. This goes all the way back to February 19th. And this episode was titled Closure in Michigan, Arrest Made in Linda Meteer Murder.
Which was one of the cases that not too many people outside of Michigan had heard about. But Linda Meteer's murder had remained unsolved for decades. And an arrest followed after some renewed forensic review and investigative persistence.
Family members never stopped advocating for answers in this case. They always fought for this. And this is one of the cases, and I don't want to continue harping on this, but this highlights the power of cold case work, because Stephen Kuhn was arraigned in February, charged with killing Linda Meteer shortly after our podcast.
Yeah.
The proceedings on Mr. Kuhn are currently delayed, but the Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office.
Traverse. You gotta bring out my Michigan. Channel my Michigan. The Grand Traverse.
There'll be someone on YouTube that will hit on me for saying,
"Whoa, don't hit on my husband, man."
Please don't. The Grand
Traverse.
Thank you. Sheriff's Office and the Western Michigan Cold Case Program.
Yes, Cold Case Program.
Are the ones that helped break this case. And now number 8.
Dun, dun, dun.
This was a combination of several cases because they all kind of came together somewhat around the same time.
Was this over the summer?
This was July 21st. This was a combo episode titled The Yogurt Shop Murders, Idaho Student Murders, and Sunshine Stewart.
Now, I believe on these episodes we had also started exclusive. So some of the episodes were our standard release, and then some of them were premium content.
And as a side note, we have had people ask, you can only sign up for exclusive through Buzzsprout. That is the only place where you can find our exclusive, more unhinged commentary on these cases. And folks, it's $5 a month.
Just $5. I'm putting out my hands like Tiny Tim. Please, sir, may I have some more?
The first case was the Yogurt Shop Murders. This was before the documentary on, at the time, it was HBO Max. Now I think it's back to Max.
Who cares?
I don't remember. No, it was Max.
Who cares?
Then it went back to HBO Max. This was one of the most infamous unsolved mass murders involving children. In September, ballistic and DNA evidence linked Robert Brashears to the crime. If you listen to our podcast, we specifically said that we thought there was a possibility that this was the work of a serial killer. So don't sleep on all of our thoughts. You can sleep on about 85% of mine. But
87% of mine.
But we did talk about the idea that this was the work of a serial killer. The DA in this case has moved to exonerate Michael Scott,
Loved him in The Office.
Robert Springsteen,
Love his Uncle Bruce's music.
Maurice Pierce,
Got nothing.
and Forrest Wellborn, who had previously been tied to the yogurt shop murders. The second case on this podcast was the Idaho Student Murders.
Oh my God.
There were 4 students who were murdered in an off-campus home. There was a lot of information, a lot of speculation floating around.
There still is. There's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about this one, even though that Brian Kohlberger admitted guilt this past summer. He accepted a plea deal that removed the death penalty from the table, but it ensures life imprisonment. But there are people still saying he did not act alone.
And that is definitely a possibility.
Well, and now that the house has been demolished, there will not be any further evidence to the contrary.
The final part of that podcast was about Sunshine Stewart. This case is ongoing. She was a biologist, a boat captain, and a carpenter who loved the outdoors.
She was obviously outdoors. She went out paddle boarding and never returned.
A teenager has been charged with her murder. The details remain limited at this point on the Sunshine Stewart case. At number 7, also during the summer, June 18th, Karen Reed retrial reveal, not guilty.
Did we call it?
I believe I did. I don't remember. I've partially slept since then. Karen Reed's retrial was the focus of a lot of media attention. It ended with a non-guilty verdict. The defense arguments highlighted investigative failures,
Which could be an entire podcast on their own.
prosecutors faced criticism over the handling of evidence.
That would be part 2 of the podcast.
And this goes without saying, but the verdict raised questions about the institutional credibility involved in the Karen Reed trial and also in the retrial.
I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Number 6, and we have to scroll all the way back to the beginning.
The beginning.
The genesis of the last clue, when we were working with an iPhone that had a specific plug-in with 2 lavalier mics, all the way back to February 17th of this year. Cullen Davis, the inspiration for another murderer. And me, as someone who lived in the Fort Worth and Fort Worth areas for a long period of time, I knew about the history of Cullen Davis, about what had happened. But this was interesting.
While interesting is an interesting word, reminded me a lot of The Jinx, which I know you absolutely love.
And that was the basis for the headline. So Cullen Davis is a former oil tycoon who is best known for being acquitted of murder and attempted murder in 2 high-profile trials during the 1970s. At the time of his first trial,
First trial.
that he was believed to be the wealthiest man to have stood trial for murder in the United States. He was first accused of murdering his 12-year-old stepdaughter on August 2nd, 1976, during a contentious divorce from his second wife, Priscilla Davis. He was found not guilty. The second trial 2 years later involved allegations that Davis attempted to hire a hitman to kill Priscilla and the judge overseeing his divorce from Priscilla, and he was acquitted again.
Tell me that money don't talk or buy happiness.
I do believe, I don't know that we'll ever know this, but I do believe that Cullen Davis was the inspiration for another well-known murderer who is no longer with us, and that would be Robert Durst.
Yep.
If you are listening to a true crime podcast, I will assume that you have seen the documentary. If you have not.
Oh my God.
I will tell you,
So good, so crazy.
my personal opinion, that The Jinx, directed by Andrew Jarecki, is the best true crime series in the history of cinema.
I'm going to double down on that, and I'm going to say I agree with you 100%.
I will hear arguments for and against this. If you would like to contact us, our email is info@smithmediateamllc.com.
Comment on our Facebook page. We love open discussion in the comments.
Comment wherever you see us. We're on all of the podcast formats. You can't miss us. It's the black background thumbprint that says The Last Clue. Fairly easy to find us.
And we're very active.
We've also found out that if you Google search us with the @ symbol, The Last Clue, you'll find a lot about us. Maybe not all of it, but you'll find enough to be dangerous.
Please don't say that.
Yeah.
Please don't say that.
Be easy on dangerous.
Anyway, go watch The Jinx if you haven't.
If you haven't.
It's really good. It's really good.
The Cullen Davis case became synonymous with wealth and perceived immunity. Later, criminals referenced the case as proof one could escape justice, which is where we headed in our podcast about Robert Durst.
Yes.
And this acquittal definitely remains a cautionary tale in true crime circles around the world.
Coming in at number 5.
So I want to tell you a little bit about number 5.
Okay.
We were extremely popular on YouTube with this next case. This is from June 30th. Got a summer theme going on.
We're pretty consistent.
This was June 30th, the theory that may solve the Missy Bevers murder. Now, a little bit about Missy Bevers, if you're not familiar with the case. She was from Texas.
Camp Gladiator trainer.
This happened at the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, which is a suburb of Dallas, depending on who in Dallas you ask.
How can you say Midlothian, but you can't say Traverse?
Because I lived in Fort Worth for 20 years. Midlothian.
Would you call me?
It looks just like Midlothian. So Missy Bevers, again, was a trainer
for Camp Gladiator.
And she was setting up for her class. She had informed her class the day before that the weather was inclement enough that the class needed to be moved indoors. The church allowed her to set up inside. There is very famous or infamous surveillance footage, whichever side you take, of someone dressed in full police, what looks to be riot gear.
Yeah, that whole tactical gear thing. There are lots of theories going around on that one.
So the person...
It's a definite whodunit.
Person wandered around the church, trying to see if doors were open, just meandering around, had a distinct limp, and then you see the assailant go into the room where Missy Bevers was setting up her equipment, and that's pretty much the last you see of the surveillance footage. We dropped a theory that was polarizing on YouTube that perhaps a teenager was involved. I still stand by that.
Yeah, y'all, if you haven't listened to this podcast, you have got to go back and listen to this one, because just kind of trying to round it out in the top 10 here is not going to do it justice. But I hope hearing the theory that he's putting out there right now perks your ears up enough to go back and listen to this episode, because I want to hear your thoughts.
I want to tell you, if the theory that we dropped in that podcast wasn't polarizing enough, we polarized one person in particular on YouTube, because that person proceeded to tell us what idiots we were for even professing that a teenager might be involved, and then waited a whole 20 to 30 minutes and made another comment on YouTube that said, I called a nationally syndicated radio show about true crime with the same theory, and the host agreed with me. And I didn't know whether to thank the guy or, I mean, he had no more let the keys on his keyboard warm up or cool down from telling me that we were morons to, yeah, I put the same theory together and the guy agreed with it.
So you and well, this one was actually you. You're a brilliant idiot. You're an idiot savant.
I resemble that remark.
Got it.
And for the Missy Bevers case, to date, no arrest has been made. At number 4, we go back to May 19th. Influencer Valeria Marquez gunned down on live feed.
Oh, this one was, I want to say it was hard to watch. Not that anybody wanted to watch it, but it was, you opened up any type of social media and it was in your face.
Because she was gunned down on a live stream.
Yeah.
The authorities confirmed that the attack was targeted.
It was.
Looks to be a hitman. And
viewers, she was dating one.
The viewers got to witness kind of the immediate aftermath without the grotesqueness of someone being murdered. You did see immediately what happened because it was a live stream.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it was grotesque to see it happen, but I mean, you also saw the aftermath and just all kinds of that's how everything came about. But the speculation was suggesting that there was a possible accomplice.
And if you listen to that particular podcast, we told you exactly who we thought the possible accomplice was. But you are more than welcome to go back into our catalog and hear our regular thoughts. And again, the only way to subscribe to our exclusive content is through Buzzsprout. We will drop the link in our description.
Again, it's $5 a month, and you get behind the scenes, exclusive content, shout outs, and probably even some stickers.
At number 3, we basically have a twofer. Number 3 and number 2 podcasts were done within 5 days of each other. This is June 5th and June 10th. At number 3, how our listeners can bring Travis Decker to justice. Travis Decker from Idaho was wanted in connection with violent crimes, including the murder of his 3 children.
So sad.
Listener tips from all over the country generated new leads, and at the time, authorities believed that public help was critical, and that led us into number 2 on our list. The manhunt for Travis Decker continues. Bloody handprints. So at the time, they were searching for Travis Decker to potentially bring him to justice for the murders of his 3 children. There were a set of bloody handprints that were found
on his truck, I believe.
So they believed that Travis Decker was injured and thought that may be the window to catch him sooner rather than later. These searches spanned multiple jurisdictions. This went on.
It was a nationwide manhunt.
This went on for months. There was speculation that he had somehow figured out how to cross over to Canada. There was speculation that he had caught one of the major highways and been able to travel cross country
down to Mexico.
But the case came to an end in September when his remains were discovered, and that brought the manhunt to a close.
Coward. Yeah, I said what I said.
And finally, at number 1, this was the first episode in what became our season 2. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about what we're about to reveal as number 1. If you've listened, you already know.
Mm-hmm. I hope so.
But a lot of people listened to part 1 of this series that became 10 episodes. This was from August 25th of this year. Joe Powell, Part 1, Life and Death. Now, what I want to tell you is this. Episode 1 was clearly the most popular, but if you've listened to the podcast, you already know this. We did not set out to do a complete season on the death or murder, depending on which way you stand, of Joe Powell. We wanted to, I think we had talked about maybe 3 episodes. So
Right.
in part 1, we did a very general overview of the Joe Powell case.
Right.
And then we were contacted by several different people via email, via comments, even privately, that said there's more to this story than you know. And so we decided to go ahead and do an episode 2. It was very well received. And then we got even more information on the Joe Powell case.
And as we went into a deep dive, I mean, it became a deep dive. And that's what we want to do here. We want to bring voices to the voiceless and cover these cases that do not get the national attention that they need and deserve. So we felt Joe deserved having a platform.
We could not walk away after 1 episode.
We couldn't.
And after 2 episodes and receiving even more information at that point, we made a very conscious decision that we were going to cover the case as much as it needed to be covered. We were going to push it as far as we can. So if you enjoyed episode 1 and you didn't take a look at our catalog, I hate to tell you, but there are 9 more episodes, and not to toot my own horn or toot our own horn, but toot. They get more interesting as they go. And there are a few people that got to the end of our series on Joe Powell, and we're really close with all of the clues that we gave. And we pushed the envelope with legal and ourselves on what we could say. But there are a few people that are damn close in our email to telling us exactly who committed this.
And we know who it is. We have the names.
Yeah, we just can't, we can't say due to legal at this point. But our number 1 episode of the year was Joe Powell, Life and Death. This was part 1. Joe Powell's death was ruled a homicide by the Oklahoma Medical Examiner. The police labeled the case a carjacking without arrests. And that report was changed.
It was.
It started out as an assault
On Joe.
and the Norman Police Department changed the report to a carjacking.
Perpetrated by Joe. Make it make sense.
And as you get further on into
I'm going to get angry all over again.
our series on Joe Powell, you will see body cam footage that shows a unique way that the police department decided to handle Joe. And when I say handle, I mean physically handle, because Joe was unconscious.
Manhandle.
And the 3 witnesses in question that, again, we do have the names, but legally we cannot release them,
They call them witnesses.
waited over 40 minutes to call 911 for assistance or aid to Joe. But on the 911 call, repeatedly said, we just want to make sure he's okay, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Throw up a big old middle finger to that.
The inconsistencies in this story have raised way more questions than answers, but now it will be up to the courts to decide what happens from here on in.
And we hope, we pray that there is justice for Joe. This case was heartbreaking, and it was and it still is hard for me to put my personal feelings aside, because I too am a mom. You're a dad, and I put it in perspective as being a parent, and it's just heartbreaking. But I will do my best to put on my objective hat.
I would like to say, if we do have any attorneys that listen to our podcast, one of the things that we found peculiar while diving into this, and you will hear it as you go through the series, is that we requested the entire Joe Powell case file from the Norman Police Department, and we were told that it consisted only of a couple of documents, which were the reports that we had already received. We also requested and asked some very pertinent questions to the Oklahoma Medical Examiner's office about Joe Powell's death. And at first they were receptive, and then they went stone silent. But For the record, and again, if we have any attorneys that listen to this podcast, for the record, we requested both the case file and the autopsy report and additional documents from each individual organization prior to any legal documents being filed in this case. My question is, because we asked in writing and following the letter of the law, do we still have the right to see those documents, even though now it's in a legal proceeding? I know that legalese can sometimes say that it precedes any
filings. I know what you're trying to say.
But I'm just curious. We asked for those well in advance of any legal proceedings, and we never received it, or we don't think we received it. I have a hard time believing that the case file for Joe Powell is 2 police reports and maybe one other document.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, if we do have any attorneys that would like to talk to us, we would appreciate it pro bono, or we can add you as a sponsor for an episode or 2, something to that effect. But we sure would like to know, and we've already reached out to our legal, but our legal doesn't necessarily deal in that type of matter. So we'd like another perspective. But anyway.
We would always like another perspective.
The number 1 episode for 2025 for The Last Clue is our very first episode in our series on Joe Powell.
The Last Clue is a production of Smith Media Team, LLC. If you have any information regarding any case discussed, email info@smithmediateamllc.com. Follow and review The Last Clue on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. And always keep searching for The Last Clue.